If you need to keep direction in strange country, you need a compass that can be used to take and set bearings. If you want to repair or improve your compass so it's of real use outdoors, stay tuned. If it points consistently north, then it's a compass. But it might not be any good if that's all it does. I was given a number of compasses, good quality ones, but amongst them there was one cheap one that probably came from the £1 shop. Okay, it pointed north, but it was only of limited use. There were three main problems. First of all, there was no direction of travel arrow, so accurate bearings could not be read or set. The measuring lines for grid references, etc., and measuring distances were worn away. And lastly, the plastic ring holding the bezel was slack. The compass was tested against a known datum line, and it proved to be accurate, so it was worth seeing if I could upgrade it. First of all, using a thin Sharpie permanent marker and a ruler, I marked on a north-south arrow, which went from the compass bezel up to and beyond the magnifying glass. Having drawn on the line, I then turned the compass over and using a sharp Swiss Army knife, cut a line from the bezel to the magnifying glass. Then I removed the permanent marker using nail varnish remover. I then filled in the mark using the thin Sharpie. So now I had a mark on the bottom of the compass that wouldn't rub off during normal use. So now I had a direction of travel arrow scored and marked on the underside of the compass, ready for use. That was the easiest and probably the most important job over. I could now use the compass to set and take accurate bearings using the direction of travel arrow and the movable bezel. The distance markings were almost gone, although it was possible to see them, but only just if you tilted the compass and the light caught it correctly, but they were no good for daily use. The first thing I did was to draw the scale on a piece of paper using a marker and a ruler. Then the upper and lower lines were drawn on the top of the compass board. The longer lines were used for 0, 5 and 10th markings for the 1 to 250,000 map. The compass was then turned upside down and lines were scored on the underside. Then the score lines were coloured in and the guide markings erased. A similar process was carried out for markers for the 1 to 50,000 maps. It was too difficult to score in numbers. However, with the lines being marked at the 0, 5 and 10 position, it was easy enough to use in the field day to day. The ring holding the bezel was a little slack, but then again, what do you expect for a compass for £1? It was glued and clamped down, but this did not really work that well. However, it was tight enough for the bezel to stay in the correct place once it had been set. For a short time spent doing some easy to accomplish tasks, a cheap and not very efficient compass was transformed into a usable navigational instrument. Before you get rid of your compass, see if you can repair it. Later, I was given one of these multi-use survival gadgets. A whistle, a striker, a place to keep your matches dry, and a compass. Again, the compass pointed north, and to make it work, I drew on a direction of travel arrow, and then put on a luminous marker for night. The luminous paint I had didn't work, so I cut an address label, stuck it on the side, varnished it down with some clear nail varnish, then went over the paper with glow-in-the-dark paint. It worked. So by holding this compass directly in front of your chest and revolving your whole body, you can get yourself pointing in the right direction and even take general, but not very specific, bearings. Again, a little bit of work turns a toy into an accurate navigation instrument. Well, good enough for general travelling across countryside anyway. When you're out there training, use your map and compass as much as you can. You know it makes sense. It'll serve you well. Thank you to everyone who watches, comments, and hopefully subscribes.